She sat at the wrong table on a blind date. What happened next will shock you forever. The restaurant buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the sizzling sounds of a kitchen alive with culinary creation. Claire sat at a table set for two, heart pounding, palms slick against her thighs. Tonight was supposed to be special. The kind of magical evening where glances linger and sparks fly. But as she scanned the room, her excitement faded into confusion. The man across from her didn't seem right. Not at all. He wore a faded baseball cap pulled low, shadowing eyes that held an unsettling intensity. She fiddled with her hair, a nervous habit she couldn't shake. The table was small, intimate, yet the distance felt infinite. A strange chill slipped through the warm air as he leaned in, his voice low and gravelly. "You know, this place has secrets." She felt a shiver creep down her spine. Was he serious? Claire glanced at the rows of unfamiliar faces, each one seemingly lost in their own worlds. And yet, an inexplicable weight hung in the air. The words, secrets, and this place echoed in her mind, amplifying the pulse of tension rising within her. The waiter swept by with a tray of drinks, his hat tilted just enough to partially obscure his features. As he poured Claire's drink, she caught a glimpse of a tattoo on his wrist, an intricate design that looked eerily like a hook. Her heart raced. She forced a smile, but inside, dread pooled like storm clouds. It was almost like the restaurant itself was alive, whispering through the steamy windows and flickering lights. Why did it feel like a trap? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Claire turned her attention back to the man, who was now leaning closer, whispering something that made her stomach twist. People don't always leave here, you know. Panic surged through her, as if a hand had gripped her throat, squeezing tighter with each word. The way he watched her, it felt like he knew something she didn't, something dark. Was this a joke? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, drawing everyone's gaze. The plate shattered on the floor, a sea of porcelain shards. Silence consumed the room. All eyes turned, leaving Claire's heart racing. She locked eyes with her mysterious date. And in that moment, something shifted, like a clock ticking down to a dreadful conclusion. What did he mean by, people don't always leave here? Was she in danger? The questions clawed at her mind. Had she just stepped into a living nightmare? As she debated her next move, an unsettling feeling settled in her gut. Maybe she didn't just sit at the wrong table, maybe she had entered the wrong world entirely. The silence stretched, taut and thick, wrapping around Claire like a suffocating blanket. She swallowed hard. The world around her blurred, the laughter and chatter fading into an eerie murmur. Her date's eyes locked onto hers, a predatory gleam flickering within them. Don't you feel it? He leaned closer. The scent of stale cigarettes mingled with his body, stinging her nostrils. Something south off about this place. Her heart raced. Was he telling the truth? The ambience shifted, she could almost taste the static in the air. The waiter, who had just moments ago seemed harmless enough, now appeared as if he were waiting for a signal, muscles coiled and ready to spring. Claire's instinct screamed at her to run. But where? The resounding crash shattered her thoughts. People clapped their hands over their mouths, gasping in unison. The waiter glanced over his shoulder, eyes darting nervously as if considering abandoning his post. His gaze caught Claire's for just a moment before he headed toward the kitchen, leaving the table deserted. What are you doing here? The man at her table was grinning now, unsettling in its intensity. Didn't you see he was terrified? Panic ignited within her. She scooted back her chair, wanting to escape, but the restaurant had turned claustrophobic. The air was thick with fear. It felt like the walls knew her name, that they had eyes. Beneath the chatter of the crowd, Claire could hear a low, throbbing hum, the kind that vibrated through her bones and warned of something terrible. "Look around," he sneered, tilting his head toward the diners. "They're all just pieces on a board. You think they know what's coming?" A cold flush washed over Claire as she stole glances at those seated near her. Their faces were slightly blank, eyes glazed, as if they were in a trance. One woman was gripping her fork so tightly her knuckles turned white, a thin sheen of sweat gleaming on her forehead. "Stop talking," Claire whispered, her voice trembling. "You're scaring me." "Good." There was satisfaction in his tone, a twisted pleasure that sent shivers down her spine. "You should be scared. Nothing is what it seems." The restaurant itself seemed to groan, the lights flickering, shadows creeping closer. Claire's chest tightened further. She needed to get out. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table. She felt the wood splinter beneath her palms, the only grounding sensation in the swirling dread. Suddenly, the doors at the back swung open with a force that sent a hush across the room. A figure stepped out, cloaked in darkness, body obscured by a long trench coat. The atmosphere shifted again, thickening into something sinister. "That's him," her date hissed, a thrill lighting up his expression. "You'll want to pay very close attention now." Time seemed to freeze as the figure approached, footsteps deliberate, each one a slow drumbeat in the rhythm of Claire's escalating fear. She could barely breathe. Who was he? What did he want? As the figure reached her table, Claire's heart pounded violently against her ribcage, the world around her dimming into a pinpoint of light. "Claire," the figure said, voice low and smooth, sending an echo of dread through her. "I've been looking for you." The room exploded in chaotic whispers, every head turned towards her, eyes wide and expectant. What did he mean? Why was he looking for her? As she stared into the figure's shadowy face, a horrifying realization washed over her. She had wandered into a nightmare from which there might be no escape. And then, the weight of the truth hit her like a tidal wave. What if she didn't even want to leave? The mere thought was paralyzing. She was caught in a game where the stakes were life and death. She swallowed the lump in her throat, desire for answers battling against the instinct to flee. The moment had arrived, and she didn't know if it led to salvation or the abyss. The figure leaned in closer, mouth curving into a sinister smile. "Shall we begin?" What did he mean by that? And just how deep was she willing to go? Claire's mind raced as the figure's smile deepened, pulling her further into the vortex of confusion and terror. The murmur of the crowd around her rose and fell, an eerie rhythm echoing her heartbeat. She wanted to look away, to focus on anything but the shifting shadows draped over the man before her, but his presence was like a magnet, drawing her in. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Everyone else in the restaurant held their breath, as though waiting for a pivotal moment in a performance. It was absurd, she thought, but nothing about this night felt real anymore. The figure straightened, the trench coat fluttering slightly, and cleared his throat softly, the room naturally aware of his quiet command over their onlookers. "You know what's coming, Claire. It's why you're here." She shook her head, panic bubbling into her chest like a shaken soda can, desperate to escape. "You've got the wrong person," she insisted. But deep down, a thunderous alarm rang. What if he didn't? Wrong person? He echoed, a low chuckle escaping his lips. The sound crawled up her spine like an unwelcome caress. "You don't think we've been playing games for fun, do you?" She darted a glance at her date, whose eyes sparkled with something far from concern, more like perverse delight. "You set this up?" Claire choked, fury mixing with fear. She had thought she was being cautious, but now the truth washed over her like icy water. "What's the matter?" he replied, feigning innocence. "Don't you want to know what happens next?" The tension in the air coiled tighter. "No. I just want to leave," she exclaimed, her voice rising an octave. The figure remained oddly calm. "You can't. Not yet. You see, there's a choice to be made." He gestured lazily at the diners around them. "Every single one of them is here for a reason, just like you." Confusion turned to dread. Claire's gaze swept over the other patrons, trapped in a web of fascination and fear. Were they all aware of this game? They looked like spectators, but their blank stares suggested they too might possess hidden truths. "What choice?" Claire pressed, her throat dry. Was this some sick thrill for them, her torment? "The game," he replied, letting the words linger like smoke. "Enter and lose yourself, or leave and never know what could have been." His voice rolled like thunder, deep and resonant, constricting her lungs. As if rehearsed, the crowd leaned in ever so slightly, whispers becoming a cacophony, blurring the edges of her reality. The hum of uncertainty spiraled in her head. She felt her heart race, pounding like a war drum. She fought to grasp the meaning behind his words, but clarity slipped through her fingers like sand. What kind of game?" She finally stammered, the question tasting bitter on her tongue. The trench-coated figure leaned closer, his breath smelling of iron and decay. "One that requires sacrifice. But it also promises rewards. Survival, power, the chance to take control of your fate." She almost laughed, but fear anchored her firmly in place. This was insane. "I can't. I have a life outside of this. Just let me go." The sound of her desperation fell flat against the echoes around her. "Consider it carefully, Claire." The figure's eyes blazed through the shadows, piercing yet unreadable. "But once you choose, there's no turning back." With a jolt, Claire realized that everyone around her held their breath. A weight pressed down on her, and dread wrapped around her throat like a noose. "Now," he breathed, a sinister excitement in his tone. "What will it be?" As she looked into the faces of the diners, a chilling realization struck her. She could feel the subtle pull of power, mingling dangerously with panic. What if this dilemma revealed a side of her she never knew existed, but deep inside, a thought twisted like a knife? If she made the wrong choice, would she vanish into the dark along with the patrons who seemed far more than meets the eye? The figure watched her with piercing anticipation, waiting for her next move. Claire stood at a precipice, the unknown yawning below her. In a world where she felt cornered and trapped, the only thing that hung in the air was the question haunting her: would she have the courage to embrace the darkness waiting for her, or would fear guide her back into the light of anonymity? The air crackled with uncertainty. Her heart raced, caught between desperation and allure. So, what would it be? Would she take the plunge, or would she walk away? With everything on the line, all she could do was take a breath and choose. Claire swallowed hard, each choice twisting in her gut like a serrated knife. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, the eyes of the figure boring into her soul, and the crowd's anticipation hummed like electric tension in the air. This wasn't just a restaurant, it was a stage set for something sinister. "Choose," he urged, his voice a smooth threat that slithered through the chaos in her mind. "This is just the beginning." Her heart drummed louder, battling the grip of fear. Images flashed in her mind, visions of a life that could spiral into chaos or one that could lead to absolute control. What if this game revealed the truth about who she really was? But at what cost? "Just tell me what the game is," she shouted, her voice cutting through the whispers. She felt raw and exposed, as if part of her secret had been knee-deep revealed. "Ah, but that's not how it works," he replied, his tone teasing, a cat playing with its mouse. "You must discover that for yourself." He gestured towards a table at the far corner, cluttered with bizarre items, a twisted game board, cards appearing to face one way but with no defined purpose, and a small silver dagger glistening ominously. The dagger beckoned to her, a siren's call daring her to reach for it. Desperation clawed at her. She felt as if she were standing on the edge of something vast and dark. The restaurant felt even more alive now, the patrons breathing as one, unity forged in madness. Almost instinctively, her gaze drifted to the man who had brought her here. His expression remained a mix of joyous curiosity and taunting mockery. Had he known? Did he care? The figure before her leaned closer, his eyes twinkling with something sinister. To engage in the game is to accept the rules. Make your selection and those rules will rewrite themselves. Ignore it, and you lose everything. Everything. The word slipped from her mouth like a gasp. The fear she felt deepened a chasm she could not climb out of. Even that simple life you claim to hold dear. His smile widened, revealing teeth that glimmered sharp. Sacrifice can bring about powerful transformations. But only if you're willing to pay the price. Claire's throat tightened further, a lump caught, her pulse screamed in response to the heartbeat of the room. Everyone was watching, waiting. The whispers morphed into gasps, faces flickering between excitement and dread. What had she stumbled into? With trembling fingers, she reached tentatively toward the dagger on the table, the cool metal promising something potent, something frightening. And as she grasped it, a jolt of energy coursed through her, the crowd gasping in unison. Congratulations, Claire. Now the game truly begins, the figure said, his smile morphing into something more knowing, more dangerous. The world around her shifted. Tables vanished, the restaurant dissolved to mist, and the patrons melted away into disembodied shadows. The air buzzed, thick with relentless possibilities. Where was she? The shadows whispered secrets sweetly, their voices laced with temptation. Power, they hissed, gliding along her skin like ice. Control. Claire's heart raced. She could feel the pulse of something darker wrapping around her. It beckoned, mingling with her fear, making her dizzy. She understood then that she stood at a crossroads, the weight of every decision already binding her to a path she might not escape, but no matter how far into the dark she stepped, a flicker of hope fought desperately to stay ignited. Was this really who she was, or merely an illusion she was buying into? A part of her screamed to resist, to flee from the shadows. Yet her grasp on the dagger tightened, a surge of confidence rushed in, blurring the edges of doubt. With a final, forced breath, she shouted into the nothingness, "I'm ready." And as her voice echoed back to her, she was met with the figure's chilling grin, wider than before, as the labyrinth of choices unfolded around her. What waited for her in the swirling depths of this dark game? Could she navigate the dangers ahead, or had she already sealed her fate? Claire felt the weight of the dagger still clutched in her hand, a cold reassurance that pulsed in time with her racing heart. She looked around, and the shadows felt more like eyes upon her now, more watching than whispering. They coiled and twisted, forming shapes that evoked fear and uncertainty. "Now, Claire," the figure purred, his voice dripping with delight. "It's time you truly understood the power you hold. The game is about more than mere survival, it's about your choices. And oh, do they have consequences?" A chill skittered down her spine. It wasn't merely a game, it was a consuming reality. The tavern had transformed into a void thick with anticipation that seemed to breathe around her. She shifted her weight, unsure of the next step. "What do I do?" she yelled into the abyss. "What happens next?" "You will play." He stepped back, nonsense swirling from his fingers like smoke. "But remember, each choice will reflect not only who you are but who you want to become, or who you fear becoming." With a heartbeat that matched the intensity of the shadows, Claire stepped forward. "What if I refuse?" The words came out more defiantly than she intended. "Refusal holds its own price," the figure replied, his lips curling in a sinister smile. "The game will move on without you. And you, dear Claire, will be left abandoned in limbo, a specter of your own worst nightmares. What is the life worth if you don't embrace your destiny?" She hesitated. The reflections of her fractured choices stared back at her, each more treacherous than the last. Just as the clawing fear threatened to overpower her, a memory surged, her younger self, confidently staring into the mirror, proclaiming she could conquer anything. Needing to cling to that confidence, she straightened her shoulders. "What's the first move? Show me," she demanded. The figure clapped his hands, and the shadows erupted in wild laughter. Very well. A warm-up, then. Look around. Choose your direction, and watch how the essence of your decision unfolds. As he waved his hand, the void split, revealing multiple paths leading into darkness. Each shrouded in haze and tendrils of hesitation. Some paths glimmered with allure, sparkling with the promise of unimagined power, while others pulsed dull and gray, seemingly leading to dread. Claire stared, her pulse racing as her instincts screamed at her to run. But she was past the point of retreat. This was the moment to reclaim what was hers. She took a step forward, and the shadows scuttled, shifting along with her movement. Will you take the path of power or the one of penance? The figure whispered, his breath like frost on her neck. A deep breath steadied her resolve. Finally, she pointed toward a trail that seemed to shimmer with a strange luminescence. I choose that one. Ah, foolish bravery. He chuckled, a dark joy in his tone. Let us see what awaits you there. She plunged into the glowing path, the dagger now warm in her palm, almost alive. Each step vibrated with urgency, humming like a heart under pressure. The space around her morphed images flickering like a projector struggling to stay in control. As she moved deeper into the radiant uncertainty, a figure suddenly emerged from the haze. It was a reflection of herself, twisted, darkened, a haunting mirror that smiled uninvitedly. Do you wish to accept your true self, Claire? The doppelganger crooned. Or will you continue to deny me? Wait. Claire gasped. Panic surged as shadows threatened to swallow her whole. What does that mean? But her own reflection only laughed, a wicked, chilling sound that pierced through the confusion. Unraveling realities spun around her, twisting her perceptions until the world felt like an unending spiral. Even as she stood, she could feel the pressure of choices pressing in on her from all sides, each one a potential path toward liberation or destruction. Was she even ready for the truth? And before she could answer, the ground trembled beneath her feet, a rumbling warning echoing through the brush of shadows. She realized, each decision led closer to an unveiling that she might not survive. With uncertainty clawing at her once more, Claire braced herself. She was teetering on the brink of revelation, but which version of herself would emerge from the depths? The way ahead flickered ominously. What pivotal choice lay hidden in the shadows? What would she uncover about herself before this harrowing game came to its end? The shimmering path pulsed with an eerie light, beckoning Claire deeper into the center of her very own darkness. Her heart hammered in her chest, the dagger still warm against her skin, a tether to reality amidst a crumbling world of illusions. What do you truly desire, Claire? The figure of her doppelganger taunted, its icy smile cutting through the air. Freedom or power? Acceptance or domination? Each choice holds part of your fate. Tension drew tight, wrapping around her like a noose. She shivered, her mind racing. The stakes were unbearable. What if she chose wrong? What if this twisted game revealed more than she was prepared to face? Can you stop pretending to be someone you're not? The reflection took a step closer, its voice dripping with venomous allure. We both know who you are beneath the surface. Claire fought the urge to cringe. This version of herself was everything she feared, the vulnerability she hid from everyone, especially herself. I don't fear who I am. I embrace it. The words came out stronger than she felt. A tremor underlined her defiance, but it was a flicker, barely holding the shadows at bay. Embrace? The figure laughed, a sound too haunting to belong to her. What you call embrace is merely a cover-up. The real you is clawing to be released. Isn't that exhilarating? There was desperation in the reflection's voice, an invitation to revel in the chaos. As Claire gazed into the depths of those familiar eyes, a sudden vision flashed through her mind, the dark moments she'd tried to forget, the scars she'd earned protecting what little hope remained. But what did she want more, to embrace those weaknesses or to bury them further? The dichotomy blared loudly in her mind, drowning out her thoughts. With a surge of courage mixed with horror, she shouted, "Stop!" The laughter vanished, replaced by an echoing silence that draped heavily in the air. Was she really prepared for that confrontation? Or would the truth slice through her like the dagger she clutched? The ground tremored even more violently now, an ominous warning. Tendrils of shadow crawled towards her from all sides, suffocating, twisting, and urging her to turn back. For a heartbeat, fear reigned supreme over her resolve. A bead of sweat slid down her temples. She was losing control. What will it be, Claire? Her doppelganger pressed, advancing with a predatory grace. Will you choose to face your truth, or shall I guide you back to the life of denial? To the safety of ignorance? In her heart, rejection roared. Eyes narrowing, Claire took a step forward. You are not me. I can't let you win. She raised the dagger instinctively against her own reflection, as if to sever the ties binding her to that version of herself. Foolish child, the figure coiled back, fuming like smoke against the air. You have no idea of the price you will pay for defiance. As the air shifted, Claire felt it a sharp, debilitating pain, the dagger vibrating in her grip, pulling her deeper into the heart of her own storm. The world spun around her, collapsing into a vortex of shadows and light, the reflection-esque laughter still echoing ominously in her mind. Suddenly, in the chaos, a flicker caught her eye. An unfamiliar silhouette in the shadows, watching closely. Heart racing, Claire squinted into the darkness. Who had joined this dreadful game? And with that, the shadows surged, casting her deeper into a mightier abyss, threatening to consume her utterly. Is it too late? She wondered, feeling the earth tremble beneath her, the darkness closing in. Would she find the answers she sought before being swallowed by her own fears, or would she lose herself entirely? The swirling shadows whispered her name, an ancient chant of sorrow and dread. Claire clutched the dagger tighter, its edge biting into her palm. As she spun around, the silhouette loomed larger, a dark figure with no distinct features but a consuming aura. Her heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears, drowning out the mocking laughter of her doppelganger. Who are you? Claire's voice quivered as the figure stepped forward, breaking the barrier between them with measured confidence. A chilling smile spread across its face, eerily familiar. I am the reflection of your choice, Claire. The voice was smooth, soothing even, but laced with malice. I offer you a way out. But it comes at a cost. The darkness writhed at her feet, and Claire felt a surge of desperation. She couldn't trust anyone here, not even herself. What do you mean? She asked, forcing the words through clenched teeth. Here lies your truth. The figure gestured towards a fractured mirror hanging in the air. Gaze deep within, and you'll see what you truly desire. But be warned, the path forward is paved with sacrifices. You do not get to emerge unscathed. Her heart slammed against her ribcage, the weight of the ultimatum settling in. What sacrifice? What truth awaited her? It's simple, the figure continued, stepping closer, the shadows humming in rapt attention. If you wish to conquer your fears, you must surrender a part of yourself, something you hold dear. Your courage will be the price. With a sharp intake of breath, Claire's memories flashed, her childhood innocence, the laughter shared with friends, her dreams, now shattered like glass. Could she bear to lose any piece of herself? Yet what choice did she have? The laughter, the mocking shimmer of her reflection, it all loomed larger than life. What do you want from me? She pressed, her voice steadying despite the terror twisting her insides. Only what you're willing to give, the figure said, every word dripping with temptation. Face the truth, and you will gain power over the shadows. Deny it, and they will consume you whole. Claire hesitated, uncertainty wrenching her gut. The dagger pulsed in her grasp, a reminder of the reality she clung to, of the fight within her. I refuse to be merely a pawn in your game, she declared, lifting the dagger slightly, feeling its weight as a testament to her spirit. The figure's eyes narrowed, darkness swirling like a storm around it. Defiance? It sneered, and with an unnerving speed, the shadows coiled tighter around her. You're trapped, Claire. You must decide now. Her breath caught as intense pressure built in the air. The mirror flickered to life, revealing a vision of herself with scars, not of physical pain but of emotional turmoil, clawing and crying within. A version of her that she feared the battles lost within her soul. I want to let you take me," she stammered, trembling under the weight of disbelief. "Then let us reveal your darkest truth," it hissed, and the mirror exploded into shards of light and darkness crashing all around her. Each shard reflected her deepest fears and hopes, a cacophony of memories flooded her mind. A wave of emotions swept over her: pain, love, regret. But amidst the deluge, one thought emerged clearer than the rest: hope. "I'll embrace that, then," she said, voice steadying. "I choose hope." In an electrifying instant, the surrounding shadows recoiled as though smacked by a wave. An unseen wind whipped against her, pulling her forward. But before she could grasp what was unfolding, a thunderous crack resonated through the abyss. "Your choice has reignited the storm, Claire," the figure shrieked, now fading into the dark. "You've made a grave error. But perhaps, in this turmoil, you'll learn the most valuable lesson of all." Claire felt herself spinning in a vortex, the dagger slipping from her grasp, darkness swallowing the last shimmers of light. "No!" She screamed into the void, understanding the gravity of her chosen path. As the world around her imploded, she felt a sinister resolve rising within her: would she face the consequences head-on, or would she be lost forever in this pit of shadows? The abyss beckoned her back, whispering the answer, but Claire was determined to carve out her own destiny. Would she emerge from the chaos at last, or find herself deeper in the murky depths? The answers awaited her just beyond the darkness, but what would they cost her? The darkness twisted around her like a living being, a relentless spiral that tugged at Claire's essence. She felt weightless, suspended in the void, with the echo of her last scream fading into nothingness. Fear gripped her, slick and cold, inching its way up her spine. Was hope really the answer, or was it just a fleeting illusion? Images surged before her, disjointed flashes of her life, the summer afternoons spent laughing with friends, the way her mother's smile brightened the darkest days, the thrill of first love. Each moment was a thread she clung to, but they began to fray and unravel in the murky chaos around her. Claire's heart raced. "I can't lose them. Not those. Not now." Suddenly, the vortex narrowed, drawing her closer to a pulsating light at its core. Was it hope, or was it her desire for escape? It was too tempting to resist. "Come back to reality," Clara whisper echoed, familiar yet warped, masking her loved ones' voices beneath layers of distortion. "Face who you truly are. Face your truth." With each heartbeat, the light expanded until it burst forth, enveloping her in a blinding glow. When her vision finally adjusted, she stumbled into a surreal landscape, an ethereal meadow bathed in twilight. Out of the shadows, figures emerged, shapes of her past, faces she recognized but twisted in torment, the memories she feared losing. They advanced slowly, each taking a slice of the familiar with them, their mouths open in voiceless screams. The tension spiked in the air, the laughter that once filled her heart shifted into a haunting echo, pulling at her sanity. "No! Stay back!" Claire shouted, fracturing her voice against the rising panic. "Don't let them go!" A voice begged. It was her own, but the word sounded like a cry for help that echoed in the depths of her mind. With the dagger now far from her reach, she felt defenseless against the furious tide of her own fears. "You're not real," she retorted, shaking her head, trying to dispel the haunting figures. "But we are." One of the figures stepped closer, fear etched on its face. It was a younger version of Claire, eyes filled with anguish. "We are your past, your choices, the parts of you that live on. You chose hope, yet here we are, still ensnared by your doubts." Claire's heart ached with realization. The more she fought, the more they bled into her thoughts, each fear clawing to return to her. "If you're part of me," she muttered, steadying her voice, "then I need to accept you." The ground trembled beneath her as she finally grasped the weight of her choice. The dagger might have slipped from her hand, but her will remained. You won't control me anymore, she breathed, focusing on her essence, the remnants of her courage. The shadows wavered, and the figures paused, their anguish morphing into uncertainty. Accept us, or be consumed, they chorused, an ominous chant that resonated through the air, Claire's heart lightning struck with resolution. I'm not afraid of you anymore, she yelled, stepping toward the figures, arms outstretched. You're part of my story, but you don't define me. As she embraced each spectral memory, a blinding light exploded from within her. The meadow rippled, waves of energy cascading outward. The figures began fading into tendrils of light, merging back with her soul. Thank you, Claire heard them whisper, a melodic symphony of voices, but just as the last flicker of fear was swallowed in light, a new shadow expanded across the horizon, a gargantuan silhouette that promised no mercy. It emanated pure dread. Congratulations, Claire. But the true test has just begun. A single, malignant eye opened within the shadow, fixating on her with a predatory hunger. Claire's instincts screamed at her to run, but stood her ground, fists clenched. What would it take to overcome a darkness like this? The question loomed before her, teasing her resolve. Would she unleash the quiet strength she had just discovered, or would she falter against the weight of the shadows that threatened to smother the light within? The shadow loomed larger, the single eye pulsating with a sinister rhythm that matched the frantic beat of Claire's heart. She felt it invade her thoughts, a cold, malevolent presence that threatened to unravel all she had just reclaimed. Anxiety curled in her stomach like a serpent, squeezing tighter as the figure shifted, revealing a monstrous body, dark and gnarly, dripping with the essence of her worst fears. Why fight it, Claire? The voice boomed, deep and menacing. It was a cacophony of all her self-doubts, entwined with the echoes of the memories she'd just embraced. You're just a flicker of light in an endless night. You'll never defeat me. Claire swallowed hard, tasting the bitterness of despair on her tongue. Those words were familiar, haunted her since she could remember. Thoughts of failure, of being unworthy, they all bubbled to the surface, crashing against the walls she had built in her heart. She couldn't let this shadow break her resolve. I am not afraid of you. She yelled, her voice gaining strength. Each word recharged her spirit, a low flame kindling into a roaring blaze. You only exist because I let you. You'll not claim my truth. The shadow flickered, hesitating. For a moment, doubt churned in the empty void of its vastness. But then, with a growl that sent tremors through the ground, it lunged forward, mouth spread wide, revealing jagged teeth like monuments of anguish in the gloom. Instinct kicked in. Claire threw herself to the side just as a wave of darkness crashed where she had stood. The air turned frigid, and she felt the chill seep into her bones. Rolling onto her feet, she scanned the meadow for anything, a weapon, a sign, a glimmer of hope. Just then, she caught sight of a fragment of light flickering in the distance, a small orb that pulsed rhythmically, calling to her like a lighthouse in a storm. It felt like a fragment of the courage she had embraced just moments before. With resolve tightening her chest, Claire sprinted toward it, the shadow hot on her heels. You cannot escape. It roared, tendrils of darkness lunging for her, snapping inches from her skin. Each leap felt like flying, her spirit rallying with purpose as she closed the gap. She dove toward the light, the energy warming her skin. Just as she reached out, the shadow struck again, colliding with her and sending her sprawling in a whirlwind of chaos. Claire gasped, panic rising again, but she forced herself to focus. This is my moment, she whispered fiercely. She yanked at the thread of energy, pulling it close, and she felt power surge through her veins. The light sparked as she grasped it. Enough! She shouted, her voice echoing through the twilight. The light blossomed, encompassing her as she rolled to her feet, standing where fear had once crippled her. She could almost feel the figures of her past at her side, their strength merging with hers. With a deep breath, she raised her arms, channeling every ounce of hope, love, and courage she had ever known. The growing light surged outward, illuminating the meadow, pushing back against the encroaching shadows. You don't define me. I reclaim my power. The shadow writhed and twisted, its form shrinking under the brilliance of her resolve. The eye blinked furiously, and for the first time, Claire saw fear reflecting in that abyss. But just as victory seemed near, a chilling laughter erupted, echoing through the meadow. "You think you've won?" The shadow's form buckled, but its voice was still strong. "You've only awakened the beast within." She didn't understand. Panic clawed at her insides. What did it mean? In that moment of confusion, she felt a shift in the atmosphere. The darkness was retreating, yet something darker, invisible and menacing began to stir from the depths of her own heart. Her breath caught in her throat. What if the true battle hadn't even begun? The oppressive atmosphere thickened as Claire stood firm, heart racing, and resolve hardening like steel. She could feel the shadows screech and twist, a cacophony of her fears rushing forward, desperate to drag her back into that void of self-doubt. But she was no longer just a flicker of light. She was the flame, and that flame would refuse to be snuffed out. "Awaken the beast within." Her voice rang out, carving through the anguish floating in the air. "I'm no longer afraid of what lies beneath." The ground trembled beneath her feet like a living thing, the shadow's laughter echoing back at her, twisting joyfully in the air. "Oh, but you should be, Claire. The darker the path, the heavier the cost." Its taunts echoed like thunder. But somewhere deep within, Claire could feel the warm glow of hope pushing back against the shadows. "I accept my darkness," she exclaimed, her voice piercing the shroud of anxiety. "It's a part of me, but it does not control me." With determination blazing in her heart, Claire began to channel that shimmering light, visualizing her deepest fears, the choices she had run from, the pain she had tried to bury. Each memory now stood before her, not as chains, but as pieces of strength, her childhood aches, the friendships lost, the faint scars from moments that haunted her. They could empower her. The shadows shrieked, twisting in response to her newfound intensity, attempting to reclaim their ground. Claire outstretched her arms, her palms crackling with energy as she declared, "You are no longer my prison. I transform my pain into power." The light swirled in radiant colors around her, a protective barrier that shimmered with defiance, and as the shadow lunged toward her, she stepped forward, energy surging at her fingertips. She thrust her hands forward, letting the light explode outward. "Your hold on me ends here." The wave of light burst forth, a brilliant beacon that scattered the encroaching darkness. There was a moment of eerie stillness, a halt in the chaos as the shadows faltered, then cracked like glass under the force of her defiance. Dark fingers retreated, revealing glowing tendrils of hope sweeping through the room, purging shadows from their hiding places. But just as victory felt near, a chilling roar erupted from the shadows. The very essence of her fears coalesced into one massive form, a grotesque visage carrying all her insecurities, ugly truths, and regrets. "You may not fear me now," it bellowed, "but I will turn your hope into despair." Claire's heart raced, but with dread blossoming into fierce clarity, she remembered her choice and courage. She wasn't just fighting darkness. She was rising in defiance against it. "I will not allow you to shape my fate," she shouted, pulling power from the depths of her spirit and those flickering memories that had once caused her harm. She turned her back on retreating shadows, now chasing the light glimmering at the horizon of her wants. "You don't own me," she declared, no longer just reacting but taking charge. With renewed focus, she reached toward the glowing core of light beyond the towering figure of darkness. The energy felt warm, a promise of absolution for every scar wound tightly around her heart. With every ounce of strength, she shouted, "I choose to rise." With a thunderous roar, the light enveloped her, surging faster, filling her with the collective will to fight back against despair, every bit of hate and fear illuminating in her grasp. Unable to contain the brilliance, Claire released it in one final blaze of energy. The eruption radiated outward, washing over the dark figure with incandescent brilliance. The shadow roared and twisted, the chilling sounds drowning under the wave of warmth, crackling with every pulse of her will. Just as it threatened to consume her, it erupted into a shimmering spray of light, scattering into nothingness like grains of sand in a breeze, and in that moment, for the first time ever, Claire felt complete. She had faced her darkness, wrangled it into submission, and emerged unscathed, not merely alive but thriving. The ground beneath her shifted, returning to solid earth as the violent storm settled, but then she stood alone with her thoughts, her past left swirling away, ready to be embraced anew. The echoes of memories no longer haunted. Enlightenment washed over her, and the weight of the fear that once paralyzed her evaporated into freedom. "I am more than my fears," she whispered, tears of relief falling freely down her cheeks, as she walked toward the horizon glimmering with new possibilities. And as she stepped forward, she realized that the darkness not only had fears, it also had purpose. Claire would carry that realization with her. Tonight, she finally conquered not just the beast within, but also the bitter shadows lurking outside. She was done being just another piece on their board. With each breath she took, she grew stronger, ready to face each challenge anew, and with that, Claire smiled, finally understanding her truth. A life well lived didn't have to be devoid of fear. Instead, it could allow for the acceptance of all parts of herself and be filled with luminous hope. As she walked into the brightening dawn, Claire knew a new chapter had begun. If you're blown away by this finale, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on more thrilling tales that promise to keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the powerful algorithm we all depend on. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What do you think about Claire's incredible journey? Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.